Welcome to Building the Future, hosted by Kevin Horick. With millions of listeners a month, Building the Future has quickly become one of the fastest rising programs, with a focus on interviewing startups, entrepreneurs, investors, CEOs, and more. The radio and TV show airs in 15 markets across the globe, including Silicon Valley. For full showtimes, past episodes, or to sponsor the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com.
Welcome back to the show. Today we have Ashley Ramirez. She's the Vice President at Halogen Ventures. Ashley, welcome to the show.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show. I think what you guys are doing at Halogen is actually really innovative and cool. And you guys have invested in some really, really cool companies. I've had a few on the show as well. And I thought, it's nice to have you on the show so you could talk about some of it and Halogen and everything you guys are doing. But maybe before we get into that, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Yeah, I am actually from the Central Coast of California, if anyone is familiar with it. I feel like over the past 2 years with COVID going on, a lot more people have been exploring the coast of California. I'm from a small town called Orchid.
Okay, very cool.
Right before you hit San Luis Obispo, driving up to Big Sur is the best way to describe it. I am the oldest of four. So I have a sister and two brothers. I actually played softball, basketball, and soccer all growing up,
Awesome.
specifically basketball and softball until the end of high school and played competitively. And then something most actually don't know about me, which I'll share with you as like a little carrot to this podcast,
Sure.
is my parents were actually teenagers when they had me. So they were
Wow.
15 and 16 years old, and are still married till this day. So
Oh, that's
I'm
awesome.
very fortunate and a product of two teenage parents in the best way possible.
Sure. No,
um, I, oh, yeah,
keep
go ahead.
going. Sorry. No, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I actually went to UCLA and studied sociology and communications there. I thought I wanted to go into entertainment because at that time, Los Angeles still is, but the hub of entertainment and media. And so all of my peers and were taking internships and jobs in entertainment and media companies and at talent agencies. And um, as I was exploring the same opportunities, I actually came across Jesse Draper's technology talk show called The Valley Girl Show, and applied for an internship there. And that's actually how I met her.
That's awesome.
But I'd say that because I come from a really small country town, and venture capital and technology, for that matter, didn't really exist. There, yeah, honestly barely exists there. There's a college in the town called Cal Poly, where they do have some like technology starting to be built around that area, but I had no idea what venture capital would entail. I had no idea what a technology startup entailed until I got to intern at the Valley Girl Show.
That's really cool. I find there's a lot of people that I've had on the show that end up in venture capital that had no idea what it was or technology when they until they kind of really got into it. So I always find that really actually quite fascinating. And I find the fact that people come at it from a different background and education is always kind of fascinating how people get into it. So you met Jesse, and then how did you end up at Halogen? Because obviously she started that well after the show. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, yeah. Well, so I started in venture capital 6 years ago in LA. And my first introduction to technology and venture capital was that internship at the Valley Girl Show when I was a junior.
Right.
When I got that internship, the previous year, Jessie had stopped the show. It was a successful show. She did an amazing job. She like produced it, directed it, like did the whole thing all by
That's
herself.
awesome.
Like I just was blown away by her, and I had no idea who she was. All I saw was her website, and I watched a bunch of her shows on the website, and I thought like, I love this like kooky, awesome, silly, but smart, like empowering personality that she had. And there was something just about her that really attracted me to really want to work for someone like her.
Sure.
And then I got to meet her in person, and then I was like, "You are 10 times what I could possibly imagine just watching you on the show and actually meeting you in person." She was so personable, had such a good spirit, and just in, full of knowledge on all fronts, personal and career wise. Um, and then fast forward in 2000, late 2015, early 2016, we kind of stayed in touch over the years, and I would do kind of side jobs for her. And she brought me on part time. And a few months in, she had called me and said, I would love to hire you full time. I'm starting my venture fund with the same mission of how I started the Valley Girl show, of really wanting to empower and support and grow female founders and entrepreneurs. We, with the same mission of how she started the show, but at a much larger capacity. So obviously, writing checks and giving them media exposure with helping them as much as being as strategic as she can as an investor, and really wanted to implement that all into Halogen Ventures. And she did. And so she said, "Will you quit your job and come work for me?" And I worked in PR. I worked for a boutique PR firm at the time, and was working part time with iHeartMedia, which felt like full time. Part-time in media, I always feel like is like a full-time job. So I felt like I had like 3 full-time jobs at one
Wow.
point. Um, I quit my job in PR, and I said, "Yes, absolutely." And she said, "Do you wanna sleep on it?" I'm like, "Nope, no need to sleep. I am all in." And I said, I have to be honest, the only exposure that I have, with venture capital is what I learned through the show, and obviously like just coming across like some research. And again, living in LA at the time, it wasn't the ecosystem wasn't what it is now,
Right.
at 6 years ago. And so she said, "Don't worry, like you're gonna be my right hand. I'm gonna throw you into everything and anything, and you're gonna get so much exposure. You're gonna learn along the way. And this is how like you build your resume. This is how it's by you learn by doing. And the best type of guidance and mentorship I can give you is by experience and being hands-on." And so I quit my job, and went on to work for Halogen for full time. And I think when I came on, she had a couple million raised and had a few portfolio companies. And she went on to raise a $10 million fund and
Wow.
invested in 37 companies out of that fund. And then fast forward, we closed our second fund this year of a little over 21 million, and
Wow,
currently have
congrats.
over thank you, over 70 portfolio companies to date.
That's awesome. So we'll get into some of the companies and types of investments later, but I want to dive a little bit deeper into who does Halogen Ventures invest in? Because I think you're a bit different than your traditional VC firm. Do you agree with that?
We're Halogen Ventures. We're an early stage venture capital fund investing in consumer technology companies led by women.
Okay,
So
very
there
cool.
needs to be a female in the founding team of 5. She can be a co-founder, a CMO, a CTO. She just needs to hold some sort of equity. It's about gender balance for us. So we do have some awesome male CEOs in our portfolio. Um, it's really just about having diverse teams and making sure that one, female founders are supported and recognized for the incredible companies that they're building, as you can see in our awesome portfolio, but also that they're diversifying their teams in every which way with age, race, gender, background, and so forth. Um, and then obviously investing in consumer technology, so needs to touch a consumer in some way or alter a customer experience and have a technology angle. We're in everything from fashion, interior design, media, social media, parenting tech, um, beauty and wellness, smart cities, transportation, childcare, kind of everything across the board.
Very cool. So when you say early stage, what does that mean to you guys? Because there can be a bit of a range when you say that.
Yeah, I think it depends on the company, but oftentimes, we're seeing companies really early. This is, sometimes we're the first institutional investor that they've ever pitched.
Okay.
I mean, I think I get those pitches like quite a few times a week of founders we're getting on a Zoom or we're meeting in person, and they're like, I've never showed anyone this deck. You're the first investor that I've ever pitched to. And I'm so humbled and grateful for that, because I'm like, wow, thank you so much for trusting me, and
That's awesome.
for taking the time. And you know, whether it's an investment or not, we do like to give some sort of guidance and follow those companies if they're a little too early for us. And as far as writing an institutional check, and you know, they can go in a different direction of either raising a friends and family round or a round right before us for us to see a little bit of growth and traction, to be able to feel comfortable investing, then so be it. But we do follow companies really closely, um, even if we don't invest. So early, pre-seed, seed. Um, Sometimes all they have is a pitch deck,
Okay.
and sometimes they have a full like prototype and company. They have traction and sales and revenue, and it looks great. But sometimes it's pre-revenue and pre-traction, and traction to us can mean, you know, 100,000 emails. Doesn't necessarily need to mean dollars.
Okay.
um, but because we're investing in different types of categories, it kind of means something different for everything else. But as far as early goes, yeah, we're the first institutional check-in, or sometimes we're the first investor that they've ever spoken to.
That's awesome. So, do you want to maybe dive a little bit into some of the companies that you have invested in the different categories you outlined to give people some context of y- typically who you guys like to invest in?
Yeah, yeah, of course. So parenting technology, I would say, is a big part of Halogen, and kind of who we are, because the majority of our network, and you know, all of us, I think even you, people that we know are parents or
Totally.
have
Yep.
been around, are part of a family of some sort, or are exposed to some type of family dynamic. And so childcare is a big like category of our under our parenting technology. We're actually investors in a company called Brella, and they're on-demand childcare, based in Los Angeles. And so they've opened up a few childcare facilities in Los Angeles, and are actually about to roll out a few more in the new year, which is exciting.
That's awesome.
Um, Caribou is a Latinx founder. Her name is Max. She's awesome. She's based in Florida. She built a family interactive video calling platform that basically provides engaging communication experience, integrating activities and books.
Oh, cool.
So I can uh, basically read a book or color or do some type of activity via video calling on my phone or iPad or computer, with my nephew, that if you know, is far away. Um, and it was awesome during COVID too, especially with people not being able to see each other in person. And she's actually been growing in a post-COVID world, which is exciting. And then we're investors in a company like Hop Skip Drive, which, you know, is a safe alternative on-demand transportation company for children and families. But it's basically Uber for kids, and they were actually the first transportation company to fingerprint their drivers. So all their drivers are
Oh, interesting.
moms or preschool teachers, and are incredible. And so they actually work with the foster care system to get be a safe means of transportation for foster kids to and from school activities, and so forth, which is exciting. And that, I think that's an amazing example of a company really working with the government and improving government inefficiencies. Um, and then all the way to companies in like Carbon 38, which is a athleisure wear brand based in Los Angeles, and Senrev, which is a direct to consumer luxury handbag based in San Francisco. We're investors in a company called Third Love, which is an undergarment company. Um, and then a few others as far as like transportation goes, a company called Metropolis, which is the future of parking. Binti, that provides software to help parents build families through adoption and foster care.
Oh, cool.
Um, and then all the way to beauty. So then we're in a D2C consumer menstrual disc company called Flex, natural deodorant. We're in an inclusive beauty company and community called Live Tinted. Prima Donna, the first ever nail bot. Just an amazing portfolio across the board in all categories. And it's awesome because all of our portfolio companies actually are able to collaborate and mesh well. So they really help each other out in a lot of different ways.
No, that's really great. And I remember because I had the founder of Squad on the show before they got acquired by Twitter. And then a bunch of us were actually using it at a company that I was working at a couple of years ago. And I was actually sad when it like Twitter shut it down when they got acquired because we were like using it all the time. But I like obviously it's good and I'm happy they sold, but I was like, no, we were using this like weekly for like a
I
bunch of
know.
stuff. So like
You
you're
and
happy for a company, but you're like it's also sad when they get shut down.
I know, you and me both. Esther, the founder of Squad, is killer. She is just such a rock star, and we are so happy for her. But what she's also working at Twitter now, and what she's doing at Twitter is just amazing. She is just a through and through amazing part of the Halogen family.
Sure. No, that's awesome. So I'm curious, you guys have this Halogen Fellowship. What
Mhm.
exactly is that?
Yeah, the fellowship actually we started 2 years ago,
Okay.
um, and it's awesome. You know, everything that we know about business tells us that more investment in women and diverse founders means more innovation and better outcomes. And I think we really wanted to take that and make sure that Halogen was doing their part to include diversity on all fronts in our investments, but also in growing the next wave of investors in venture capital. Um, so not only in startups, but in investment committees. So we're doubling down on our commitment to improve diversity in technology with investment in these incredible founders and companies, but also the launch of the Halogen Fellowship in venture capital. We launched it alongside Silicon Valley Bank, Amazon, and Manat this past year. And it basically is a focus on gender dynamics and addresses the lack of equity, diversity, and funding in venture capital. So Halogen is really working to expand our mandate to support the next generation, the next wave of not just entrepreneurs, but investors as well. Um, so it's exciting. We take on 10 undergrads and from all different backgrounds. So some of them are kind of on the cusp of deciding whether or not a career in venture capital is for them, or
Okay.
and some actually graduating from the fellowship are go on to work at venture funds or get another internship in a venture fund, or decide, actually, I want to do operations. A few of them have actually ended up working for our portfolio companies.
That's cool.
Um, and then now, you know, a year later, are deciding, okay, I think I actually want to try out venture capital and try an internship in that. So it's really exciting. They come from all different backgrounds as far as finance, media, marketing. Like business development, kind of everything in between. So we've met some incredible young undergrads from all over the US, and it's all virtual. So we're able to build a curriculum from which my amazing colleague Alexa actually runs and helps build the curriculum. So it's fun.
Okay, so how does that work? Like I get accepted, how much of
Mhm.
a commitment and how long is it?
Yeah, it's a few months long. And so I actually don't know the exact length. I always feel like it goes faster than I think. So I feel like
Sure.
it starts and then we blink and then all of a sudden it ends.
Sure.
Um, but we basically go through every single resume. You can apply online to be a part of the fellowship. Applications usually open a few months before, and then we go through all of the resumes and applications. And it's so hard choosing only 10, I will say. But then we onboard them, they meet the entire team. We have our GP does a talk, I'll do a talk, Alexa does a talk, and everyone from the team kind of picks a different category.
Okay.
Um, to give a presentation. We allow our portfolio companies to get involved. So our fellows basically have a list to choose from of projects that they will do for one of our portfolio companies, and then they present it to us as their midterm, and then at the end they do a research project um, of their choosing based on a list that we have, and then they give us that presentation as well. And then we have some fun things along the way. We have a few mixers with some other fellowships from other VC funds so that they can kind of intermingle with other investors at different funds, which is fun. So yeah, it's a really really good time, and so far we've gotten a lot of great feedback. So
That's awesome.
we're excited to continue to run the Halogen Fellowship till the end of time.
Sure. No, that's really great. So why do you guys believe at Halogen it's so important to kind of not only support companies and investors that are obviously in the game today, but that will be in the, near or future?
Yeah, I think for us, we're trying to do our part in investing in diverse founders within startups, but also really, I think that the change happens in investment committees. So, really changing those um, investors to be a lot more diverse and have that diverse investors bringing that perspective to the table really can change things. And I'm a big believer in it starts from the top and it's a trickle effect down, right?
Right.
And so the lack of diversity is, surprisingly grim, but I do think and like to hope it's getting better. And Halogen's working really hard to solve this problem. So when you look through that lens, it's not all surprising that the diversity numbers are so grim in venture. But I think it's only 7% of decision makers at VC firms are women. 1% of those decision makers identify as Black, and I believe it's 2% identify as Latinx.
So really
But at the
low.
yeah, at the core of what, Halogen has always believed in, even before we started the fellowship, when Jesse started the fund, was diversity breeds success. And I've always loved that she said that from day one and
Sure.
has lived that out for the time that Halogen has been alive and thriving. So that's really what we are at the core and what I believe at my core too. And I'm part of the All Raise um, group as well. So All Raise basically arms female founders and funders with access, guidance, and support to exponentially accelerate their success and propel an entire industry forward. So not just with entrepreneurs, but with investors as well. Um, and I think that there it's getting a lot better, and I think that when it's talked about and um, people are given a chance in venture, which is why I actually love that we're doing the Halogen Fellowship, is you don't have to be a part of like a traditional background to get into venture. Like
Right.
the greatest part I think that builds a venture capital fund, or to be honest, any type of business or company, is the diversity that comes with it. And that doesn't just mean, you know, just race. It means age, it means background, it means experience, gender. Like it's everything across the board that truly makes up it. Exponentially extraordinary company is the diversity that it has with it, and being able to bring all those different perspectives and experiences into one and create this awesome rocket ship of a company. And so yeah, I hope that answers your question in a much convoluted
No,
way.
no, I think it's good. But I'm curious then, like, what can somebody like myself or others that have been in tech for a long time, what can I do to actually help? Because I think obviously, like, I can't set up a fellowship or like, and I don't really have the money to invest in a bunch of companies. But is there something that I could do that's either maybe financial or maybe not financial to actually support diversity? And I agree with you. I don't think it's just one specific thing. It crosses a bunch of different things, like from gender to race to where
Mhm.
you grew up, from being rich to poor to doesn't really matter, right? Like we need more different types of people coming at technology, building companies, if they choose to build companies.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the best way to help is to recommend anyone that you know that is looking for some type of opportunity. I think it's important to kind of speak up if there is, someone that you know is hiring or looking for an advisor, a board member, and you kind
Right.
of look at their roster and you see that there's no diversity, and you say, "Hey, like, I actually might know a candidate, or why don't we reach out to, this person to see if they have any potential candidates that are qualified for this position and with a more diverse background to really diversify either the cap table, the advisory board, the board of directors, or the C-suite team for that matter." Um, I think speaking up in that regard, and sometimes, like, we don't even notice, right? It's just we're but I think just to be conscious of that and always recommend it. And it can be something as simple as if you're speaking on a panel, for example, or you're tuning in on a panel and you can write them and say like, "Hey, I noticed that the panel is all men.
Sure. Yep.
Why don't you throw some females in there? Why don't you throw like a Latinx like investor of some sort to really get that perspective?" And so I've actually seen it happen many
That's awesome.
times, and it's incredible. I love to see it. People really speak up and just try to create as much diversity and inclusion as possible.
No, I think that's really great. So I'm curious though, because you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier when if obviously it's very cool that you have founders or somebody in the C-suite that is maybe never even talked to an investor before, feels
Mhm.
comfortable to come to you guys at Halogen. How have you guys kind of fostered that culture that people are comfortable to come to you guys even when they're like, this, you're the first VC that's seen this deck? Because in my experience it can be very scary and stressful just sending it to anybody, never
Yeah.
mind a VC.
Yeah. um, I love this question actually. And I feel like we haven't really talked on it that much in the past, but Jesse Draper, our GP, actually did an amazing job of basically putting out this Batwoman signal, is what she calls it,
Okay.
of if you're a female founder, come to Halogen. Like, come to us. And we tried to really create this awesome community of not only investors, but also business providers and entrepreneurs, specifically female founders.
Right.
No matter what stage you're at, if you have never raised capital before, or if you have raised, multiple rounds of capital, um, this Batwoman signal really went out there and made Halogen a lot more approachable. But Jessie actually set such a great example because when she would speak on panels, I would go with her and listen in on her talks, and I'd sit in the front row and really support her and try and champion her as much as I could. And she would give out her email address on panels. And at the time, I was a chief of staff of Halogen Ventures, so I was her right hand, really helping her with a lot of administrative stuff, but also operational on supporting her as the GP, and also the fund, so structure and development of Halogen. Um, and I would just be wide-eyed right when she did that, because and she would look at me and she would say, "Ashley is slowly freaking out because a lot of those emails are gonna go to her." And I think a few times she's actually thrown out my email address too, and I'm just like, "Oh my gosh." But it really so early on, and it instilled in me, like, what is the goal here? The goal is to really empower, help, and grow as many female entrepreneurs as we possibly can. The goal is to make the future billionaires or the female billionaires of the future. That is the goal. And so how do we do that? We become approachable. And we make sure that female founders feel comfortable cold emailing us, and if they have to, stalking us on LinkedIn. Like, there's been a few funny stories of like people finding you at events and like waiting for you at the door and coming up, like shamelessly just coming up to you and introducing themselves. I love that. I love meeting founders, one in real life, but even the ones
Sure.
that reach out to me in a creative way. There's been a few that have submitted like video pitches, which I think is so fun and creative, that have messaged me on LinkedIn, have found me on Instagram. Um, and I'm not like active on uh, social media really on a career front, but have found me in some way or form, and the same experience with Jesse. But I really try at least my best as an investor to give everyone the time of day, as much time of my day as I possibly can, and give them a shot, and hopefully give them as much guidance as I can, even if it doesn't mean, it doesn't result in a check. Um, and so, yeah, I'm proud that female founders, or founders for that matter, really feel comfortable reaching out to us. And even if our GP gives out her email on a panel, because it's actually now what I do every time I'm at an event or I'm doing a speaking thing, I will give out my email, and then you can see everyone else on the panel like panic, like, oh no, do I have to give my email?
Sure.
But I think it sets a precedent. So
No, I actually think that's really great, and I think the thing that's interesting about what you guys are doing, and when I talked to Jessie, because I had her on the show, I don't know, a year or two ago,
mhm,
is how brutally honest you guys all seem to be with whatever comes at you. And like the piece that, like, Jesse's Medium piece, investing in women isn't charity. There's a
yep.
swear word in there, but I can't say that on the show. So but like, just the fact that it's like you guys are brutally honest about kind of the good, bad, and other, and the fact that you're willing to put yourselves out there and say, like, look, we're willing to help you. Where I think a lot of VC firms, it's so daunting, right? It's like that, but you're like, no, 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 maybe we won't invest today, but that
Mhm,
doesn't mean we're not going to invest tomorrow, right?
exactly.
And I think a lot of VC firms don't come across like that, and I think it's really cool that you guys do. And I also think it's really cool that you guys are actually investing in kind of non-traditional spaces. And I know you talked about, like, childcare seems to be, and family seems to be an upcoming care, and
Mhm.
like femtech, or whatever you call it. So do you want to talk about why you think investing in stuff that's not for white males anymore is actually like a huge growing market that I think has
Yeah.
always been there, it's just never been tapped into?
Yeah. I mean, Harvard Business Review came out with and said investing in women is a $3 trillion opportunity.
Wow.
And so there's no shortage
Well, it's like
of
50% of the
companies.
population.
Yeah, exactly. And women actually hold a very high percentage of um, consumer household decisions based on
Right.
purchases. And
Sure. That's
so
definitely in my household.
exactly. But I think, we're really investing in companies that are solving problems for families, for parents, for women, men, an individual person of just anyone. We're trying to really solve as many problems as we possibly can. Invest in those companies that are doing that, but also know how to make money and know how to build good, successful businesses. Um, and it's a massive opportunity. We're definitely not going to miss out on that. So we're honing in on investing in this massive market of female founders, and we're very fortunate enough to have a great portfolio of founders that are the best of the best. But I think everything from future of families and parenting technology is um, the future. And Jessie actually, I don't, she has been doing these Instagram live series about childcare,
Okay.
and how do we fix this childcare crisis is what she called it. So I recommend everyone tuning into her Instagram lives, but also an article that she recently wrote on Medium as well about childcare. It kind of gives you a perspective of what the future could look like and how we could create a much better future by fixing childcare.
So just out of curiosity, what, for people that don't know or maybe don't have kids, what is so broken about childcare? I agree with you, 100% agree, but I'm curious to get your thoughts on what she's talking about in that.
Yeah, it's I mean, first of all, childcare is not affordable.
No, totally.
It is, it's not accessible and just not affordable for the average person or even like the richest person. Like, I think it really is tough to find a good balance of finding good childcare and working and struggling with finances and struggling with family dynamics and then also juggling just like real life.
Totally.
And so Jesse actually wrote this awesome article and said, childcare is not a hot topic. It's actually a crisis. It's not a trend. Um, it's a national emergency, is what she called it. And as a society across, gender, age, race, and everything in between, we do need to do everything and we can to fix it and fast. And I think a lot of families over the past 2 years, especially with the pandemic, have really experienced the struggle of childcare and working from home and not having access to affordable childcare even post COVID,
Sure.
all the way going from like preschool to daycare and then, finding a good schooling education system as well. Um, and then it kind of goes into like maternity leave and things like that and how we need to fix that and level the playing field for both fathers and mothers. Um, but yeah, it's the pandemic wasn't, the root cause there. I think it's been a problem and a whole broken system for years now. Um, I believe that, even pre-pandemic, a lack of access to childcare costs the average American family like 37 billion in lost income. And then
Wow.
employers, it was 13 billion a year in lost productivity each year. That was something that Jesse actually quoted in her Medium article. And it's frustrating.
Totally. Yep.
It's, and so if anyone has any solutions to how to fix childcare, please email us. We're all ears.
No, that's very cool. We're kind of coming to the end of the show, but I was hoping maybe you could highlight maybe a couple more companies, maybe some newer ones that you invested in, or a couple others that had some recent exits.
Yeah, yeah, of course. We're actually investors in a company called Vibrant Planet, and
Okay.
it's a platform that combines adaptive planning and market incentives to restore like biosphere and the climate.
Oh, cool.
Um, in shorter term, they're basically saving the world of wildfires.
Sure.
um, and they're awesome. I recommend checking them out. Vibrantplanet.net is their website. Um, and then newer investment that we recently did was Baby List, actually.
Okay.
Um, and Baby List is the number one baby registry, and you can basically build your registry like from any store onto your Baby List registry, which is exciting.
That's cool.
They recently closed. We were in their most recent round, and they expect to hit about 250 million in revenue
Wow.
this year.
That's
So
awesome.
very exciting. Um, yeah, and then you can check out our portfolio as well for anyone listening at halogenvc.com/portfolio.
Perfect, Ashley. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you and have a good rest of your day.
Awesome, Kevin. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, and thanks for tuning in, everyone.
Thank you. Okay. Bye.
Thanks for listening. Please visit our website at buildingthefutureshow.com to join the free community, sign up for our newsletter, or to sponsor the show. The music is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.